I'm doing a podcast.
We'd like to welcome you guys back to the Mad Maker Show. My name is Eloy, and we have Matt Haas from Awesome Wood Things joining us on the coast seat. Matt.
Hello, Rockin' Woodworks people. Matt Haas here from Awesome Wood Things. Glad to fill in. We're gonna have an awesome show. I'm ready to go.
That's like the 19th time that you do, like in your when we were. Matt runs a show where he gives various tips and tutorials and runs through Illustrator, vectorizing, art in general, and as well as YouTube info and tips and whatnot. And so I go over there and stuff. And so the other day, Matt was so yesterday, I think it was yesterday, yeah,
correct, Monday.
So you're in the heat of the moment, you're doing your thing, and then I comment, because I like to comment and continue the interaction. And then Matt live says, and okay, and I got a comment from Rockin' H Wood, and I was no.
There's a lot of similar sounding YouTube names out there. It's all good.
Well, in any event,
because the N is separate, Rock N, and it's just hanging there. Confuses me for some reason. It's all good. Nothing but love.
It's I figured, my name is so convoluted as it is, so I might as well. And I do a lot of the rock and roll, so I figured rock and roll and woodworking. It was Steve Harneal that suggested that name at one point, and we went with it. But in any event, I'm very happy to have Matt Haas from Awesome Wood Things co-hosting here, and all of you guys out there. We're gonna interview Jim Dockrell, which I don't know if he's been interviewed before. Have you ever done one of these?
No, nobody's been brave enough yet.
Well, I thought it important to get your story, and I'm glad that we're the first ones to do so. So in a little bit, we're gonna interview Jim. And if you don't know Jim and his work, really awesome. Check out the links in the description. He goes into detail building just basically everything you could imagine in the shop. Right now he's involved in, we'll get to it later, but making a bench from chopping down a tree and cutting it up and just the whole thing. So very cool. And so with that said, I want to mention JP is entertaining visitors still, and so he is out. I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but I've got a few more things to say, but I'm going to send it over to Matt, see what is going on with him and whatever he'd like to share.
Awesome. Well, I'm cranking out projects in the Awesome Wood Things workshop, so expect some more project videos to hit the Awesome Wood Things channel. As you mentioned, I'm doing a new show, All Things YouTube. That's where I'll cover the week's news that happened, all things YouTube related, and give you tips on growing your YouTube channel. Maybe do some channel reviews where we'll take a look at some channels live on the air and pass on some tips. I'm still doing the Learn Adobe Now session also on Mondays, where I play in Adobe Illustrator and I teach you how to use that awesome line art program. I'm just being busy rocking things out on the interwebs and having a good time teaching and displaying all the cool things I cobbled together in my shop just for fun.
Awesome, dude. I just want to mention a couple of things. So we're all, I mention it a lot, and I think it's important, and I kind of theme the show with that as one of the key features, that we're all connected in one way or the other, kind of like that, 7 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon that we used to hear about. We're all connected in one way or the other. Even the guests that we're interviewing today, in one fashion or another. And it's nice to highlight and sort of mention so that folks can discover how those connections occur. Just me back in the day, I found those type of connections reading books because of music and bands, and how one group or one person would be related or associated in one fashion or another. And it created sort of like a spider's web of information. And I really dug that sort of universe, kind of like what you'd see with comic books and storylines intermixing and all that. And I like that applied, at least in my mind and here in the show, outward towards, you know, the audience and the internet at large. So with that said, we're doing a bunch of podcasts as well. There's lots of live shows occurring. I think that's been developing more so. Matt actually, Matt and Ryan Bitters called out and said, "Hey, Eloy, could you come and do a show with us?" And we started off a show a few years back, and it sprang into different areas. One of the areas was Makers Rock, which is still an ongoing thing, and it's highly successful. A lot of makers creating album art reproductions with your you know how an album would be. What is it, Matt? Like
almost 12 by 12. A real album, I think, is 12 and 5/8 by 12 and 5/8. But you know, a foot square.
Yeah. And so a lot of things like that. Well, so the Made by Nation, we started that off. It stopped at some point. We started a thing called Scratched. Matt went off to play baseball and baseball season, if you recall. It's tough. It's a tough thing because one gets inspired and then, you know, it just you know how it is, Matt. You know the story as well as I do because you were there, right?
Life is a roller coaster. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, life is a roller coaster, and you know, so we have Scratched going on right now, which is a little bit rowdy as far as a audio podcast is concerned, with Jared HIldabrant, Ryan Bitters, and Ryan Bales, and now we just got picked up by another. I don't know if you've heard of Spreaker. They offered us a huge package, like. We're on, they're basically hosting all of it. We just got, they like what we do. And we're pretty stoked about that. We're doing other podcasts within the scope of Scratch. So there's another one called Trampled Underfoot, where it's Mark Lindsay and I, and that comes out each week as well. So you can check all that out. On the Scratched Facebook, and there's a Scratched YouTube channel as well and website. You can see the itinerary there. But anyways, I just wanted to mention all that. With that said, is there anything else, Matt?
All good. I mean, that's where I'm keeping busy. 2 live shows a week and cranking out projects in the wood shop.
All right. So for now, that's it. We do want to know who's out there, so we're gonna ask that, and then we'll get to our guest.
Awesome. Got a full house already. Got Julian from the 5x30 workshop, Anna's workshop, Be Happy Woodworking, and Honeybees. Oh, there is some new wax products available on his site. We should probably push that because he's awesome, and wax sealing products in the wood shop are awesome. Bob Lee's workshop, Daniel Haru, Frankie's CNC Woodworking channel, Harneal Media, that's Steve, Javi's Woodshop, make room for Javi, Ken McCrory, Sterling Davis, Tom Spillane, and others are piling in as we speak. So getting kind of full in here, just the way we like it.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, I did mention to John from Be Happy Woodworking that we'd mentioned he just went live with his wax, Happy Wax, for wood turners and more. I don't know if it's possible. I could probably link it in the inside chat, Matt, and then you could link it out, or I could just link it directly there. But I'd like you guys to go check it out and, you know, support him by just checking out the product, checking out his site, and he's just rolling it out now. Made at home, beeswax with other ingredients, natural. It's safe on the skin, but more details will be found on his site. So that's Be Happy, John Be Happy Woodworking and Honeybees. So I'll do that as we go through the show, just so you guys could go check out his website. So with that said, Jim, thank you for being patient, dude. welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on. Thanks for the show. And thank you also, Matt, for all your awesome input for the community.
Thanks. I'm happy to do that. And thanks for getting in the hot seat tonight. There'll be a lot of questions thrown your way, so buckle up.
I'm a little bit under the weather. I had some chicken today, and I think I undercooked it a little bit. You know.
Wow.
That's severely undercooked, man.
Woo.
Now, in Jim's videos, he at the beginning, I think it's a new thing that he's added, but there's a bird, a duck,
a loon,
a who,
a loon.
Don't you have to be you have to be that you don't have to offend me doing that. I mean, we're just doing a nice show for you to be so aggressive.
No, not a loony, a loon.
Yeah, it starts on with the sound, and it triggers. It always remains in my mind. At some point, I don't want to say it, but I've told you before. At some point, I think you have to go hunting. But with that said, Jim, so dude, give us a little bit about where I want to start in a different way. So you have a very nice area where you live, and it seems so tranquil. I don't know if it's that it is tranquil or that you film it and edit it as such. But your shop is sitting in a very peaceful place. There's like a lake somewhere. It's not a huge shop, but tell us a little bit about that area just so we can have a better picture of it.
Well, I live on the headwaters of what's called the Bayfield River, and it's not much more than a drainage ditch here. And it's a mobile home park. There's only 35 units or so in the park, so not a big population around. And we're kind of out in the middle of farm country, and we've kind of made it our little refuge away from the rest of the world. So we get rid of the hustle and bustle of everyday life and kind of keep it that peaceful, serene. And there's one thing that when I'm filming, and I don't notice it when I'm filming, but I notice it when I'm editing, I often hear the wind chimes in the background. And I go, oh, geez, no wonder I like being out here so much. So my shop is kind of my little hideaway from the world.
Very good, dude. I always find it very peaceful, tranquil when I'm watching your video. It's interesting the way you do your videos. You just go about it, or at least the ones lately, but you do go and sort of allow the person to, you know, tag along with you, even when there's a shortcoming, a scenario where there's trouble up ahead, and you know, you let the person write it out with you. So to me, that engages me because I'm like, well, heck, how are we going to solve that? And it sort of helps people, you know, sort of want to comment and say, hey, why don't you try this and this and that? Although I know that you know which road to take. You know, it's not like you just started.
No, I've been at it for a while, but I don't really want to put things out there that are sterile and just, you know, 5 minutes, I've got a blank lot, and 5 minutes later, I've got a completed house, you know, because I bring people through the journey and through the story is what I try to convey. And sometimes not everything goes as planned, and that's real life.
Yeah, nothing, almost nothing goes as planned, actually. At least that's my experience, dude.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, so I have all the links below just so folks can go and we're trying to get Jim some subscribers and some, you know, a little bit of exposure so we can learn more about his story and folks out there can learn more. He's a very interesting guy. You live where?
I live about an hour north of London, Ontario in Canada. Just outside a little town called Seaforth.
And tell us a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your background. Just your family, your origins in that? I mean, has your family always been from that area? Give us a little bit of background, the way
Well,
you see fit, and
uh,
then I'll ask you supplementary questions.
well, I was born in Northern Ontario, in a little town outside Sudbury called Lively, and I actually was a few miles outside of town, and it was a little valley that I lived in, and about 70, 100 houses in a valley surrounded by trees and small mountains and that. I was very young when I was born, so I don't remember a lot about it. But yeah, I grew up there. I spent the first 22, 23 years of my life up north, and pretty much learned how to do just about everything that I know now. Just been a refining process since then. Up there, it's, work was hard to find, so you either had to fix it or build it yourself. I started out in the mechanical field as an auto mechanic. Actually, at a trucking company, I started out. Moved through auto mechanics and did a million other jobs. Worked in a bar as a DJ for 6 or 7 years. Finally moved down to London, Ontario. Started getting into the factory life and put my 25 years in the factory and got hurt, and now I'm on my own, put out to pasture.
Growing up, how did that look like for you up in Canada, Ontario? How was a kid? What were the things that a kid would do in that area at the time?
It was great. I mean, we played in the woods all the time. I had my friends and neighbors all close by. It would be nothing for us to take a jump on our bikes and ride a couple hours down to the lake for swimming in the summertime and all kinds of winter time things. I played playground hockey, and I did not a very good skater, but tobogganing and, see who could jump off the biggest ramps and biking all over. And my mom used to say she had to set traps for me to get me home for supper. But the only rule was, be in by the time the street lights come on.
When you were young, and in that scenario where I guess it sounds relatively rural.
It was rural.
So it appears like that you were given a lot of freedom to, investigate, explore, and adventure. Is that a fact or no?
Oh yeah, I was pretty young when I figured out that a screwdriver fits in a screw, and from that point on, my curiosity was about how things worked. Just, I tore things apart and just figured out how they worked, and I was always involved in working with my hands in one way or another. When I got into grade 7 and 8, they had a wood shop, a little thing that they had set up. We did a little bit of metalworking and stuff. And then in high school, I took all the shops. There were 5 available. You could only take 4 of them. So I took drafting, auto mechanics, electricity, and welding. And then for grade 11 and 12, it was down to 1 that you specialized in. So I took doubles of auto mechanics throughout high school. The drafting still serves me well. Later in life, I went back to school and got a degree in drafting. And that was the last class before they brought in CAD programming. So it was still all done by hand at the time.
Nice. I want to thank Javi. Javi, thank you so much for the super chat, dude. I linked you and your channel there. I appreciate it. So do you still stay in contact with any of the friends that you knew back then from your area?
A few of them on Facebook are friends of mine. Not from my early childhood. I got a couple of family friends that I still, not a real close relationship, but we still basically keep in touch. It's like I've had a whole bunch of different lives. There's just a little bit of crossover in each one of them. But, as I've moved throughout the province, I've lived in 5 or 6 different places, like throughout the province, different areas. So I've lived in Sudbury, Elliott Lake. I've been up to Iroquois Falls, which is way the hell up north. I've lived in Ottawa, I've lived in London, and now I'm north of London. I've lived in a lot of little communities. So, you know, I've kind of had all these different lives that I've lived, but they all seem to have a little bit of interconnectedness.
You have a certain type of personality where you can joke around, you can be serious, and you know, a lot of people like that, but you have this way about you where you can be totally, you know, kooky and joking around and slapstick, and also be focused. And you can see in the videos, right, how detailed and focused you are and solving problems. So there's all these things. So I'm just still staying with the early years, Jim, in the early years. Were you a kid that was well behaved? Were you mischievous? Were you? I mean, how were you?
Well, my parents were both pretty good on the discipline, but they were also pretty good with humor too. So my mother came right from Birmingham, England in 1945 as a war bride. So it was nothing for us to be watching Benny Hill or Monty Python or any of the British BBC shows on TV when we were young. So we got that sense of humor, and we were always allowed to express it. And you know, there was a lot of one-upmanship in our family, joking around and that, and it never got serious. So you know, along with being expected to be responsible, we were also expected to be able to take a joke as well as give one.
Right. Anna, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate your support always. Thank you for the love. So did you ever do anything that was, what was one of the sort of like, can you recall any things that you did as a kid that were a little mischievous and a little bit, daring and got in trouble? Is there anything like that that you're willing to share?
Oh, it was constant. We were always daring things to do things. One of the traditions that we had when I was a young kid is we'd take all of our school books at the end of the year and we'd go out to the gravel pit and set them on fire. So we'd have this big bonfire of all of our school books at the end of the year. And there was always, try to convince the kid next door to see if he can jump off the highest jump with his bicycle until somebody got hurt, tobogganing down the great big hill and jumping from one toboggan to another. Just being kids, being yard apes.
What's the before I ask Matt, because I know that there's questions and he did mention that at some point earlier, and I don't want to let that slide too long because it'll get away from us. But boy, I totally, when I started explaining the whole Matt Haas bit, I totally forgot the darn question I was gonna ask you, dude. Son of a gun. Do you hate? Do you hate when that happens?
Happens to everyone, Eloy. No worries.
I was totally like right off the cuffs of what Jim, but then I said, wait, let me take care of the Matt Haas because Matt Haas has to go, and I know that there's questions, and once I went into that other thing, that side of my brain just freaking it shut down, dude. Can I recoup? Can I recoup with the question that I was gonna ask Jim? No, I don't think I can, dude. Go ahead and ask the questions, and I'll see if I can find that one question. If not, we'll have to let it go.
Okay. Questions from the chat room coming up. All right, let's see. Julian from 5x30 Workshop asks, have you always had a sense of humor, or has it just happened, once you've gotten older? And it sounds like you've since the Benny Hill days, it sounds like it's always been there. So that's cool. Anything else on your sense of humor over time you want to share?
Well, we had a large family. There was 8 kids in our family, and we used to always tell people that none of us look alike because during the war my mom had a bike. So they used to ask who our dad was, and we used to say some sailors.
Oh my goodness. I love that humor. I can't get enough of it. Sterling wants to know about multi-videos. He says you have several multi-videos like the deck and the guitar stand. and he wants to know how well they do when you have a multiple video series versus standalone videos. Can you speak a little about that?
I think they do as well as anything else, and it depends on the build, whether somebody's actually interested in it or it catches the imagination. Like I said, I don't like just having a sterile, here I put this together thing. I like going through the process and that. So quite a few of my videos end up to be a little series. Now I do have little tips and stuff like that that I've learned over the years. And every once in a while I'll think one up and I call it Doc's Little Docs. So if you ever see that, it's like a 5 or 6 minute video, or sometimes 3, that, you know, I've just, oh, I know how to do this. I can pass this little tidbit on. So I throw those out every once in a while.
Sometimes those small videos can really perform well, especially if you link similar small videos in the end card. Or put them in a playlist. That's good too. So.
Yeah, they're in a playlist.
Awesome.
Almost everything I put in a playlist. I don't know how well organized they are, but they're there.
That's the way to do it.
I think Jim was in that show of yours, Matt, when you were reviewing, right? You were, right, Jim? Yesterday?
Yeah, I follow Matt pretty faithfully. You know, I don't use Adobe at all, but I watch the show anyways, and I always give a thumbs up because Matt's the man.
Thank you for that. Yes, he was in the chat room yesterday. That was fun.
The playlist bit that you were mentioning during your show that you just brought up, that you guys just brought up now, very important thing. But I was curious. I hate to divert. I know you got a job to do, but where did you find that? Where did you find the resource that told you playlists are good to have, on your channel?
Comes from YouTube. YouTube says to do it. YouTube likes unique URLs, and playlist has a unique URL, and so does the watch page. It's something they track. It's something they want. So you give it to them. That's the strategy. If YouTube says they want something, if you want to grow your YouTube channel, you do what YouTube says. And I think it also speaks to when a viewer is in a playlist, they're likely to go to the next video in the playlist, and that keeps people on platform longer. They won't jump off to another platform and leave YouTube. They like that. So it's multiple reasons, but it really comes down to there's some sort of incentive for them to have good metrics on the back end for unique URLs, and a playlist is a unique URL. That's where it came from.
Okay.
A few more questions if we want to get those in. Frankie's CNC and Woodworking channel wants to know about black walnut. He needs to make a farm table and some benches, and he seems to think you might know where to get some. I don't know. Do you know where to get some black walnut for Frankie's CNC and Woodworking channel?
Yeah, about 40 feet that way.
We had a funny question, I think, maybe an inside question. Javi wants to know, how does monopoly money feel? I'm not quite sure what that means, but
it's small.
It is kind of tiny, isn't it?
But it's colorful, so they got one thing right.
Yeah. I can make it rain with monopoly money, but
I don't want to, but I just, for some, knowing Javi, knowing Jen, and correct me if I'm wrong, is he making a little joke at currencies and how they look like ours is all green, and is that the story or no?
Yeah, Canadian bills are all different colors.
So was that his thing?
Well, actually, I call them Williams because I'm not familiar enough with them to call them Bill.
Fair enough.
Colorful currency. Yeah. Look at that.
Whoa! Blinded by the light. Hold it up still, because
that's a $10 bill, and it's purple, light purple, violet. I don't know, whatever you call it.
They've got the anti-counterfeit going very well.
Yeah.
Try printing that in your.
That's the only bill in my wallet.
We just got greenbacks here in the U.S. Greenback American dollars.
Fivers are blue. The 20s are green.
They should
50.
match like the casino chip colors. Is $100 bill black, and then a 1 is white, fives are red.
You know that very well. I would not have an idea. Like when I see the movies,
I'm all over the blackjack table.
And we don't have a $1 or a $2 bill anymore. That's $1.
Oh,
That's what we call a loonie.
how many sides on that? I see. Anyway.
You can see the loon on it.
Yeah, barely. Back it up from the camera just a bit. That's getting a little more in focus.
And angle it up. Yeah, we can see the little duck on there. And it's funny because that's what happens at the beginning. You have that little clip where you have the loony come in and it goes. I'm telling you, dude. At one point, you're gonna have to do something drastic with that creature.
Well, that comes from Northern Ontario. It's something that I've gone to sleep with hearing coming across the lake a lot of times. So.
Do they ever like perch on your window where you're sleeping and it's way too early and they're like just
no, they're pretty exclusively a water bird.
Oh, okay, good. Because chickens can be they search out the frickin' window wherever you're sleeping so they can crow the hardest and loudest. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Sorry, Matt.
No, that's the questions we have so far, so we're good.
Okay, so right now you're involved in, I'd say, an epic, barbaric, savage build. Just barbaric and savage, because you decided to take a tree and dice it up, plane it down, and this is the sophisticated sort of description of your. This is what's going to be written in your book as like the opening thing. Eloy's footnotes to the sliced, diced, frickin' plain, and you're working on what?
Roubaud style workbench, inspired by André Roubaud, the French 17th century writer about woodworking. So it's not an exact, it's just my interpretation of his. And a lot of things I do like that, I do them just to see if I can do them. If I put a certain joint on something or use a certain method, it's a lot of times it's for no other reason than I want to try this method.
Yeah. I want to thank Gatton very quickly. I don't mean to interrupt, but this is a live show and things are happening on the fly. Thank you so much, Gatton. I just want to say this. We'll link you. I hope Matt can link you there, Gatton. I did sort of reach out to, and I'll say it publicly, but it's the Mad Maker show, so it's all cool. Gatton, I'm seeking to do your interview so we can get some CNCers, more CNCers here. We've had Javi and a few others and stuff. So I hope that we can do this sooner than later. But thank you, Gatton, for that. Going back,
CNC.
Yeah, I mean, scroll saws are actually, the scroll saw is a superior tool.
The problem with
Are we
CNC,
going there?
The problem with there's nothing wrong with any tool that you use, and a CNC is just another tool. But the problem with CNCs and scroll saws, and sometimes lathes, unless you're like Kyle Toth, is that they really make boring videos sometimes. There's not a lot going on with just watching something run like that. Well,
yeah,
and that being said, those three machines probably make the most beautiful work that there is.
Yeah, I mean, well, with the video side of things, it's always a task. In general, more so when you have a machine that's doing, all this cutting, and you have to wait a certain amount of time because it's at that, moment where you're dishing out the actual finished product. Maybe some sanding, maybe painting after, but it's always a difficult thing. Sort of, do I add a story along with it? Do I cut, into different video footage? How does that look? I mean, it's an art form, layering on top of the actual project. I mean, that's what we deal with as makers, creating videos apart from the actual so you have a standalone project, and that's it. That's a gift on it, you know, in its own right. But then we have the secondary. That's why with Matt's, I suggest you guys check out his, you know, makers have to do multi-layered. It's not just sitting and talking. You know what I mean? What do you guys think of that?
I think if anybody thinks that CNC isn't really woodworking, they haven't run one before. You know,
well, no, but
you don't just put a chunk of wood in one end of the machine and a finished product comes out the other.
No. There's a whole host of, I mean, you know, and Gatton actually designed and built his, and he continues. I think that they were talking about lasers at one point as well. Just the point, the actual bit that I wanted to focus, you know, it's not only just the making. We have to actually create a video, edited a story, and this and that. Whereas you'll see other formats, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just calling it, you know, where you'll have people like yesterday. I don't know who it was. It could have been Mark Lindsay that said, dude, there's a whole fad where people just open up food and they eat it. And that's their thing. That's
insane.
I think, you know, what we're talking about is being entertaining on YouTube. And yes, it takes more than just video of a CNC machine running or a scroll saw being used. It's as you were getting at, Eloy, it's multifaceted. You have
you look at somebody like Frank Harvath, and he can make a CNC or a turning video that will capture your attention. But I mean, he is one of those guys that has a vision that's just unbelievable in the video making world. Just the way he's so creative in his work and in his filming and in his production and his editing. He's the total package.
Okay, but you guys didn't address the fact that there's a freaking series of videos where people sit and eat, and that's the dude. That is the video. They sit and consume.
When you have 1,300,000,000 active users on a platform, any niche product can be overwhelmingly successful from a YouTube creator point of view. Yes, there's people who whisper into the microphone, and that's a huge thing.
Okay, we're gonna for the next like couple of minutes, we'll whisper the thing. Okay, so Jim, my next question is the following.
What?
We were talking about, no, but you have to be soothing. You can't be you can't be,
Okay, I'm whispering now.
Yeah, you have to
Can
be.
you hear me?
Yeah, you have to
Be very, very quiet. We were hunting stupid people.
ASMR listeners.
There you go, Matt. Don't break the mood that we're working on here. So okay, we'll stop that. But there are whisper videos.
It's crazy. True. You never know what will resonate with a large group of people. And
yeah,
that's what we're getting at.
Well, anyhow, so getting back to so you started off on this build, and you've been documenting the build, and it's not like you've not had your, and by the way, it's coming out incredible, dude. Is it okay to touch on a few of the key things that you know that stuck out in my mind, or should I just do an overview? I don't know how exposed you want me to.
Go ahead. It's all out there, and it's your show. Feel free.
All right, so you went and you chopped that up, sawed it, brought it into your shop. You're working it, planing it, and stuff, and you get to the point where you have your boards that they're about to meet, and you're having issues because once you do that, and because it seemed to me you wanted to hand tool the thing as much as you could. Yes.
Correct. Yeah, as much as I could.
So this is like fresh, from the frickin' forest, and you get the boards, and they're, you've got the thickness going, and you join them, and then you see that there's, what is it? Is it not warping? What's the word? A little twist?
A twist in it. Yeah,
So
there's a twist in it.
Yeah, explain that whole, like, I've enjoyed the series and stuff. I think I missed one episode. Matt, did you manage to see these episodes with the bench?
I didn't catch him.
Yeah, he's going with and by the way, the links are to Jim are down there in the description. He's trying to go with the hand tool bit. Like, he's trying to, and he's succeeding, but you can't, you know how wood is. Wood has its own, and there happens to be, and what do you do? So he's at this crossroad. At the time of that video, he's moved ahead now. And at the time of that video, so he's like, well, he explains into to the audience, well, what do I do? He puts them on the floor, he steps on them, you could see that there's light, and he's telling us all the options available to him. And all the while I'm thinking, well, not to say CNC, but a router with some sort. And go ahead, what did you tell us? What happened? Just give us a little bit of that so that we're in your shoes when you're building that and you come across that issue. You know the options available to you, obviously, but you're reluctant to go forward in one direction or the other, so you let it sit. I'll stop talking about that and let you do your explain.
Well, in my initial flattening of the slabs, I just wasn't careful enough. And this is in hindsight. At the time, I thought I was doing everything hunky-dory, and there was a little bit of twist in it, and I thought, well, I could get away with it. But once I got the slabs together, the twist multiplied. So, I thought I could get it out with hand tools, and I'm not an exclusive hand tool worker. I'll never give up my power tools. I like my power tools. So I figured the best thing to do was build a sled, and I show how to set it all up so it's all coplanar and everything. And I take the router to it and level her out. That's about the only option I could have. Otherwise, I would have been there for weeks with the hand plane. And if you ever pushed a hand plane through ash, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. So I don't mind turning to electrons to help me with my work. Sometimes my Wheaties just don't power me through.
Well, no, dude. Just the fact that you chopped it down, the tree, or was it one that was fell over?
No, the tree was killed by ash borer that we have up here, and they had a guy come in and he chopped all the trees down, and so I got a whole bunch of trees. I got 2 years of firewood. I heat with wood here. And so I got 2 years of firewood, but the last one I looked at and I thought, well, I can get a couple of slabs out of that. So I figured, well, I don't have the proper equipment to do it. I don't have a mill or anything. I wonder if I can do this freehand with the chainsaw. So I just went about, and that's just one of those things that, I figured I'm going to try it just to see if I can do it. And it took a lot of work, but I'm calling it successful.
Oh yeah, dude, it's looking gorgeous, heavy duty, and you put the blood and sweat and tears into it, and that's the beauty of it, that you're going through all that stuff. But I'm glad that you made that bed and you leveled it, because at some point you're gonna have to sit there with the hand plane for ages, no?
Yeah, well, there's still going to be a final leveling done to it, and that'll all be done by hand. Now, it's just got a slight little bit of a wow in it from, because wood is wood, and it moves after a while. But, this trip has been almost a year now on this build. Now, I'm farther ahead than what the videos are, because I haven't gotten around to editing video. And, sometimes I get a little bit lax on editing video, and I've got to be in the headspace to do it. I've got to be in the headspace to tell a story before I edit a video. So once I get in there, I get on a one-track mind. I don't like anything bugging me. I have to have the headspace. I put my headphones on. I edit my video and just kind of go through a story.
Yeah. I have some more before I continue. I have other questions in other areas. But Matt, are there any questions out there? Any questions you'd like to ask, or
Yep.
just roundabout?
One question come in. Daniel Haru. I think I got your name right.
Harju.
Harju. I thought it was like
It's actually
Haru.
see, I don't want to see Daniel, and but it just Daniel's got one of those names like mine. You did a video of how to actually say my name, and it's one of those things. And I
Should I do one for Daniel?
well, yeah, he needs one of those videos. How do you pronounce? Because one evening I was doing the Scratched episode, and I mentioned Daniel on the Scratch, and Doc is a friend of his, and I said his name. I don't know how I said it at this point, but Doc said no, and like I felt like I stepped back. He says, "That's not how you say it. You say it like this." And Doc, you know, he's this guy from frickin' Pennsylvania. Well, in your neck of the woods. And he's got, you know, his particular swagger and his particular, and all of a sudden he busts out into this Nordic pronunciation.
Yeah, it's Norse.
Of beauty and alignment out of this Italian guy. And I was like, and I felt so ashamed that I had said the name wrong, even if it wasn't live in front of. And
Doc is surprisingly sophisticated at times.
Well, he just blew my mind. And then all of a sudden, so then we were hanging out with Harju. And I said, "Oh, dude, I said your name wrong on the show and this and that." And he said, "And because I say it Harju," and he said, "Dude, that's fine. Say it like that."
So what is the proper pronunciation?
Oh, don't ask me, dude. Ask Harju.
Well, he has a question about your affinity for guitars. Where does that come from?
When I was young, I thought I was going to be a rock and roll star, like any teenage boy. So I picked it up. Never really got to ever learn to play it really well. But I really love the instrument. I don't know why. It's just an accumulation of things that are so imperfect that it's perfect. And I found that my talents go more toward making them work right than making them sound right. So I like tinkering with them. Like all things, I like tinkering with them. So I learned a whole bunch about setting them up and cleaning them up and, you know, trial and error and fiddling with them. And so it's a nice pastime with me. And I love it so much that I love being able to see it in a person's hands that can create magic with it.
That is so awesome. What a great answer. Excellent. I have some questions. So, well, the favorite tool. What's your favorite tool in the show? What do you like to use the most?
Oh, gosh. I love them all. I got a set of hand planes, but my bench planes are my babies. The newest one is from 1936, my bench planes. And I bought number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the guy threw in a block plane and a marking gauge, and it was $115 Canadian for the whole works of them. Now they all needed work, and I brought them back to life, so my sweat is in there. But then I look at my table saw, and I got that from my dad, and he's 94 now. He's still kicking around, but you know, so that's got special things to me. And I've got a hammer that I took from him when I left home, and that was the first tool that I've ever owned. So you know, I don't have a favorite. It's the favorite is, you know, I have a love for them all. My favorite one is the one that suits the purpose at the time.
Cool. We're getting some guitar chatter in the chat room. Just Jim Bashirs likens you to Leo Fender because he can't play guitar or can't play well. And I guess he made that connection with you. I thought that was a neat.
Well, I wouldn't mind being as successful as Leo was with the guitar.
Come on. Frankie CNC Woodworking Channel says, playing guitars are like woodworking. You will always be learning.
That's correct. That is very true. I haven't played in about 3 years now. They've been hanging on the wall. So I have to get back at getting them fixed up. And you know,
I'm a big fan of guitar build videos. I think it's fascinating how they're put together and the precision and engineering that's needed, and even, you know, the neck, how it's bent a little bit where it.
Yeah,
I dig it. I dig it a lot.
There's a girl in the UK that puts them together named Susan Gardner. She has a channel on, and she just does the most brilliant, beautiful work, and long format videos, but just the work that she does is just beautiful. And she's a good player too.
Nice. Nice. All right. That's what we had from the chat room and from my end, Eloy.
All right. So let me ask you about, so, you know, YouTube comes around in 2006. Can we 2006 or can we say 2006? Which works best for you guys?
Just numbers.
2006, I think, is the preferred convention.
The preferred?
There's no wrong answer.
Well, so, you know, YouTube comes along and there's all sorts of, you know, channels that start. It's, you know, it was a little site and it just blew up into what we know now. When did you start your channel? You know, and have you had your channel for a while, or tell us how that discovery of YouTube? Because at the end of the day, it's funny, but we're makers, creators, and plus video, you know. So when did that, tell us a little bit of that story.
I think I started around 2014. So I think I've been at it for about 3 or 4 years now. But I mean, I was inspired by all the other guys that were at the time. There was, you know, the Wood Whisperer and Matt's Basement Workshop and all those guys that were the pioneers. And they were sending out these videos, and it just, you know, well, gosh, you know, they're making some really cool things. And, you know, at the time I wasn't doing much, so I figured, well, you know, maybe I'll give this a little bit of a shot. And YouTube for me is not about putting videos out there so much as it is accumulation of a whole bunch of hobbies. I've got a hobby at woodworking, and I've got a hobby at tinkering at things, and I like photography, and I like videography, and I like telling stories, and I don't mind editing videos. So, you know, when I get all these hobbies put together, well, YouTube is just the repository for the end product of those hobbies. Because what else do you do with your videos?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of ran across you originally on Facebook, and it was in the I Like to Make Stuff group, not affiliated with the I Like to Make Stuff guy, or something like that. But I seen you there in comments and stuff. People post their cool, you know, creations, and we end up, you know, commenting, and there you were, and you'd always have like some sort of a joke, half joke, yes, you know, but there you were. And so when did you, how did you get into that group anyhow?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure how I got it. I just find I belong to about 4 groups on Facebook that are all maker, woodworking oriented. And, you know, you just from one you find another type of thing. And so I found them, and, you know, I'm on the one for Makers International runs. Which one's that?
Makers on
Makers,
YouTube?
yeah, Makers on YouTube. I'm part of Russ Clarity's group, Videos and Makers on YouTube.
Makers,
yeah,
on YouTube.
I'm part of the one that is run by Maybe I Said Too Much podcast, which is
we like to make stuff.
We like to make stuff, and I think there's one more. I can't think of it right now.
There's a bunch. I like to make stuff.
But the community is, you know, the thing I like about the community is that they're not a bunch of dour, sourpusses. There's a lightness and a sense of humor and some good-natured ribbing going on, and they can give a joke and they can take a joke.
I'd like to just say you can't say sour puss on the Mad Maker Show, but continue.
Oh, can I say fuck?
No, you can't.
Oh, okay.
I see. I opened the door for that, didn't I? Dang it, Jim! It had to be you, man.
Demonetized.
Well, don't let that stop you.
Did that go against community guidelines?
No.
Strike one. No, I'm just kidding.
No, in the context of, have you ever seen, so, it's funny because I prefer not to, but have you ever seen like the Joe Rogan Experience podcast?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times.
I just, like that's like the number one sort of podcast thing out there and stuff. And he does the podcast side, and then he'll do on YouTube videos. He needs no he needs no help, and yet we're talking. That's just how it works. But he'll run the field with different, ideas and concepts and stories and this and that, and he'll throw out his F-bombs and everything, and they're still rolling.
They're just words. Listen to George Carlin on the 7 words you can't say on television and radio, and you'll get it.
Yeah, well, but
I listened to George Carlin as a kid, and he just killed me. Just cracked me up.
It's amazing how his content holds up even to this day.
Yeah. Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. I listened to them all as a young man, and I had tears rolling down my face at that time. And if I listen to him today, the same thing happens. It's just funny. I mean, don't get too serious. I mean, if you're gonna be that serious all the time, like, what is your life like?
Well, that's totally true. But in the context of that, you're so have you heard lately they've been like dropping channels like flies? Have you guys heard what's been going on?
Some of them, yeah.
So the whole idea. So look. So us, and this is neither here nor there with what, but since we're all friends here, we might as well. So the idea of free speech, freedom of speech, and the ability to share those ideas. Sometimes, things are not in good taste. But not in good taste, an idea can be not in good taste. And the person, I was gonna say spewing it, delivering that, and the person receiving whatever information it might be, it could be the most horrendous, concept, and yet in reality it's not. It's just an idea. There are things that sort of straddle the fence of like, complete, lunacy, but at the end of the day, it's words and communication. And so the idea of trying to bar certain things and this and that, to me, it's a little bit too much, considering that, ideas is all that we have, and storytelling is all that we have. And not every story is a good story. Some stories are not nice stories. And the ability for one to eject from the conversation or move on to another thing is always an option, as long as it's always an option, as long as you're not shackled and stuff. So that's kind of how I feel about, the whole thing. There's a lot of things that I don't want to consume, so I don't, but to, the platform a bunch of people and this and that because they might be risque or this or that, it's, I guess it all depends, but you get the gist of what I mean.
Censorship. And I mean, there's nothing, an idea has never hurt anybody. Actions hurt people, and as long as you're not preaching hate, maybe I shouldn't say preaching, but espousing hate or harm to somebody. Well, I mean, if an idea doesn't come to light and if it's not discussed, how does a resolution ever come if it's hidden away?
When we were kids, we used to, let me ask you guys this question, just out of curiosity. We used to, and I'm sure you probably did, we always had the debate of, if we plan a bank heist, and document it to the nines, but it's just us in our, and those and that gets found out, and is that a crime? You know what I'm saying? As kids, we would think if we went into detail, like, this and that, but it's just us playing around.
Crimes are actions.
Right. So you could go to like the cuffs of the edge of like planning it out, details, and Money Monday is going to be on the left corner of Santa Ana and this and that. And you could be like detail, and yet, and they get discovered. There's nothing. right?
Well, we haven't reached George Orwell proportions yet, where we have the thought police.
So plan your heists, folks. Just don't do them. In any event, what's going on in the chat? Because we went a little bit off. It was all with the F-bomb. The F-bomb is what you did today, Jim. You have caused a ripple effect that will be heard around the world.
Well, I warned people that this might be your last show.
We are caught up on the chat questions.
Okay, and who's out there?
Let's see if we got some new folks. Sterling stopped by. I didn't think I caught him. Katie Dotson, Jim Bashirs. Those were some folks that stopped. TJ's was in the house. I think he still is. Did I mention Julian 5x30 workshop? Oh, Shelly Cole from Know What Mom Knows. She stopped in. David from Portal Woodworks. Good to have you here. Yeah. Mark Lindsay. Did I say him the first time? Not sure. There you go. Yeah, got a good crew. Good crew.
Awesome. So go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for showing up.
Yeah, it's very cool to hang out with friends and the format that we're doing, you know, like Matt with his shows, and we have a nice group of friends that hang out and actually do really cool things and share their life stories and adventures and, you know, all that stuff. It's just such an awesome thing, dude. People around the world, you know.
I'm usually the guy in the chat room putting all the snide remarks and comments in. I'm not used to being on this side of it.
Good to have you in the hot seat. Yeah.
It is, because, you know, we want for the record to have the and we want, you know, I always mention this when this sort of comes up, but we want instances of your story to be spread throughout, you know, the in different shows and throughout the internet. I mean, so people run across it and investigate. That's the idea, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the more exposure you get, throughout the community. And I mean, you know, I try to promote as much as I can and support, you know, my fellow creators on YouTube as well. It's just like a bunch of friends going together, you know. If you all go out somewhere to a certain meeting place and party together, you're all there, and you're all there to have a good time together.
That's good. Yes, it's great that you give, you know, as much as you get from the community. I think the two-way is good. That's what makes it so awesome, I think. Yeah,
dude, and you know, and a lot of you guys have met in person. Like, I know that Matt has met a lot of makers in person. I've met 3, Javi, you know, from this community, right? Not, you know, Javi, Jamie Page, and Mark Saunders.
I think getting out of your state and going to other states, leaving Florida temporarily, I think will help. So consider that, Eloy.
I might, when I do leave Florida, I might not leave it temporarily. It might be a permanent vacation, like Aerosmith and their album. Florida is such a long state that to break through, it's like really exhausting. I know Javi would say different. He knows, but like he'll just go and do it. But it's so, and we're like, it's like,
take a 2-day trip to Georgia. Come on.
Well, it's very, and plus it's very hot down here, dude. It's hot. Look, it was hot today.
Hot in Georgia.
It's hot in Georgia too. You have to keep going, dude. You can't stop and just.
We'll take you in Pennsylvania. Go all the way past the Mason-Dixon line. We're here for you. Come on.
Yeah, dude.
You might not know what to do. You might freeze.
You'll have to go north of me to get cool, because today here it was like 90 degrees with 87% humidity.
Dude, it was hot today, but I'm not even okay. Look, I don't know about you guys, and you know, I've been up to Pennsylvania. I've never been to Canada. But it's been years and years and years, Matt. And it was cold, but dude, it's like every day in here, and people, I don't think people can appreciate, unless you've, for a long span of time, like spent time here, like having to deal with like waking up and go, and it's hell on earth, dude. It's hot. It gets in your pores. It tries to invade your brain. It is so intensely vapor hot in Miami.
Well, I think that has to do with the ocean too. The ocean is a brutal environment to exist in because it's, I don't
Dude,
know.
I don't know why people,
It rusts everything. Does everything rust where you are?
everything rusts.
It's like you need to spray lacquer everything that's outside in Florida or at any beach town.
Dude,
Yeah.
yes, dude. It's
All right. There's a whole handful of people that want you to come up to Pennsylvania
all right.
and meet you. We should start a GoFundMe. Get Eloy out of Florida for a weekend. GoFundMe. What's it gonna take? Come on.
One-way ticket.
Yeah, baby.
Well, how far south have you gone, Jim?
I'm about as far south as I've ever been. I've been to Buffalo, New York. You know, but I'm actually where I sit right now. I'm actually south of about 20 different states.
20?
Yeah, there is a whole bunch of states that are a lot more northerly than Wisconsin is totally north of me. You know, North Dakota is totally north of me. South Dakota is almost north of me. Washington State is north of me.
Wow.
Like, people don't realize that, you know, this part of Canada in Ontario, it jabs down there quite far. I'm 2 hours away from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh boy. I think isn't Bernie Solo somewhere near there?
The nearest maker that I know of near me is Alan Robinson, the woodworking junkie.
How close are you to the woodworking junkie?
40 minutes. I've been to his house. We went to a woodworking show together.
Oh, what a trip, man.
Yeah.
Hobby planned out your trip, Eloy. 22 hours to get to my house.
Oh, 22 hours with I could do that. Let's see. I'm gonna have to sleep 4 times.
Get a drive. You and Javi can trade off. You drive straight through.
Yeah, you could be there tomorrow.
No, we're getting all kinds of. They're saying, come to Connecticut, come to North Dakota, come to this, come to that. Chat room is blowing up.
I would love to go. I'd love to go to, what is it? The Fort Colonial Williamsburg. That's a place that I'd like to go to see.
Well, why is that?
That is my style of. That's my era. That's the era that I love the woodworking come from. Colonial American with the simple furniture and the way they did things all handwork, and I find it just beautiful.
Go to Pennsylvania, over in Lancaster. You have the shaker furniture style. Yeah,
shaker. I'm not too keen on. It's a little spindly.
Well,
for me, some of it I like.
A wide variety here.
I like the things like the old 6-board chests. You know, like very plain, austere, squared off furniture, functional furniture.
All right, Jim, you come south. Javi, you come north. Well, no, I was going to say Javi said. Oh, I was meant to say Javi said it would make a great video, Eloy. So there's your reason. Content. It would be good content.
There you go.
Oh, don't think that I won't film all of it. Of course. What are you kidding?
just don't Facebook Live it because you'll drop out in the dead zones. How many Facebook Live trips to the grocery store have cut out mid live stream on Facebook?
Oh, incredible, dude. I haven't done a major road trip in years and years.
Do it. Chat room. Who thinks Eloy should get on the road? And Jim should come south and Eloy should come north. Thumbs up if you like the idea in the chat room.
So Jim, what makers you said early on? You said the Wood Whisperer. You mentioned a few others. which one of the makers, those early makers, really inspired? I guess those were the ones that inspired you, that really inspired you, said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot. I know you kind of mentioned that, but just to refresh my memory.
Yeah, Shannon Rogers, he's all hand tool, and Bill Schenner from Billy's Little Bench.
Yeah.
He was one of the ones, and in fact, I've built his saw bench. That was on. I just did a video on that one. Well, not on that one, on my other one, but his saw bench was on there. Yeah, those are the main guys. Matt's Basement Workshop at the time. I don't think he's creating anymore. But I mean, you know, once you start getting one, then it's like it expands like a spider web in a whole bunch of different directions that, you know, you just keep finding all these fantastic creators.
What do you see? I know it's hard to look into the future, and it's kind of like, because, you know, well, again, Matt's working with the YouTube, you know, the concepts and what is a good way to go, and ideas and helpful hints. But how do you see? It's a hard thing to look into the future, but how do you see the future of all this that's happening with the social media and the just piling on of content, and just give us an idea with, you know, that I gave you. And Matt, you can answer that too, just, you know, off the cuff. You know, I know it's very broad, but how do you see the future of like YouTube and social media?
I would think if YouTube keeps going the way that it is, it's inevitable that they will get competition someday, because it's such a platform, and they've changed it and molded it in such a fashion that now people are starting to get, well, you know, I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with this, and you know, and this is too hard to do there, and I can't express this point of view there, and there will be an alternative. And I imagine there's some that have tried that have not been successful yet, but you know, people will keep trying, and there will be a competitor eventually, and YouTube will have to react to that in some way.
YouTube is way out ahead of all other platforms, but that's not to say they can't lose it. One event could sink the platform, and that almost happened when that one YouTuber put that video up about that horrible thing that he found in Japan. That almost sank the entire platform, because one horrible video made it to the front page, and yes, so anything can happen. The future, well, I mean, looking to the future, you have to kind of look into the past a little bit. And YouTube used to be very advertiser friendly. What the advertiser said went. If you got 3 strikes, you were out. That there was very little path for you to undo wrong things that happened to you. It was very advertiser friendly, because at one time the advertisers were going to leave, and they said, what do you need? And they're like, well, if there's any songs out there, we want to smack that whole channel down. That's changed. Now it's gotten very, it's getting more even between the creator and the advertiser. It has moved. That needle has moved more even. And I think if YouTube continues to strive for a fair platform for advertisers and a fair platform for creators, if they can continue that evenness, that sameness between those two, I think the platform will explode. Twitch is hot on the heels, but you know, Twitch isn't where YouTube is. YouTube has a revenue sharing, multiple revenue sharing platforms, and it's getting better. You know, they've got I would never bet against Google. I mean, they have their stuff together. They're a well-run company with clear goals, and Google owns YouTube. I mean, I know most people know that, but
well, there's no doubt they have the financial clout behind them. They have the resources. It's a bit delicate balancing act. Yeah. And touching again on that video that you had mentioned that put everybody in an uproar.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
legitimate.
Oh, well, exactly. You're exactly right on that. But see, that's when they came about with all the changes for monetization. And what happened is a huge, huge channel with all kinds of subscribers made the mistake. And who paid the price?
Almost all of us did, and that's
Yeah, but
exactly why
I
they
mean,
put the
they made
want-
it harder to get into the game, though.
they don't want bad actors on the platform, and they're checking.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them, but they should have, it should have been that channel that paid the price and not the guy that's, making videos on how to build something out of Lego,
Well,
for instance.
I get it. It's not an easy challenge to keep a
No,
website
and
like
that's
running.
one of the problems with broad-based rules is that there's a lot that falls through the crack.
Wow.
Well, let me. I don't. So I don't know what video you're talking about. Is it the guy that did some insults while he was there? Is that the video you're talking about?
It was the video in Japan where there was a park, a community park where a lot of people would go to commit suicide. It's a sad state of affairs in Japan. It's not a perfect country.
Oh my goodness.
And a famous YouTuber made a video out of that, and it was done in very poor taste. And the outrage literally almost exploded the entire platform. Everyone that's a creator and everyone that consumes content was at risk because of that one decision from one creator. And they said, well, we want to make sure that make sure that doesn't happen in the future. And, they can't give 100% guarantee. They can't do anything to get 100%. But one of the things they said was, well, if we're going to monetize you, we want to check you out and we want to make sure you're on the up and up. And so they put the restrictions in: 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours over the last 12 months. So that
was the reason.
Oh yes,
did not know
it was trending that way regardless. But that event turned it on.
It was in very poor taste. Very, very poor taste.
Holy smokes! I did not see that, and it goes to show that it's such a vast ocean. And you guys knew about it. I had no freaking idea about that.
Then there's the whole adpocalypse, which is separate from what I just said. That's got a whole other discussion. I don't know if we want to go there, but
well, I think that I mean we could, but I want to ask Jim a couple of more questions before, because we're
topic. Yeah, good.
But I think that would be a good thing to talk about maybe on your show.
There's interest.
I think it's super interesting, actually. So just, since I'm blown away because I didn't know that was I had no idea till now. So let me just clear my head.
Your show is educational too.
This show
is educational too. You just learned something.
Oh yeah. See?
There you go.
Well, no, every time we come up on here, we're learning new things from specific individuals. So, I mean, heck, right? It's like Sesame Street. So let me ask you this. What is your philosophy, life philosophy? What is Jim's outlook? How does he see life? I know it's another broad question, but I like to open that up and see what comes back.
Geez, I don't know if I have an overarching philosophy. I get up in the day and, if I've done something during the day, and I have to do this, and I've got to look at an accomplishment during the day. And so, it's not the destination, it's the journey. So every day, whether it be good or bad, you don't want to miss it because, geez, you don't want to miss what's going to happen next.
That's actually, it's funny because that's very noteworthy, deep, and I agree with that. And we forget that I forget sometimes. I don't know about you guys, because when you're in the mix of, some great travesty in life, whatever that means, to whatever degree, you're forgetting that. I forget, somebody said, it's all a game, man. Somebody Was it George Carlin, dude? There was a comedian or somebody. No, what was that Texas guy, Matt? That comedian that passed away in the early 90s or
Sam
mid.
Kinison. No.
No, he was from Texas. And he was a little rambunctious and stuff. If I remember the name, Bill Hicks. He was pretty funny, but he was like a little outrageous and stuff. Do you remember him or no?
Oh, yeah. Most comedians are outrageous. The good ones are, anyway.
Well, Bill Hicks had this thing, and it's funny because he tells all these jokes and stuff, but he wrapped up one of his shows and he said, "You know what, man? Just because he was talking about all the conspiracies and all the insanity and all that. He says, end of the day, it's a journey. You're on a journey. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the things that enjoy." And he brought that home, and it's kind of like what Jim was saying there, and I think it's totally true, dude, because you can get wrapped up in life. Oh, I got to finish this. I got to do this. Like right now, I'm dealing with hell on earth with flooring and stuff. Oh, the flooring, my life. It's the flooring. It's the flooring, but it's flooring.
This too shall pass.
We're all just stories in the end. Just make it a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, even if your life is a train wreck, have you ever seen a train wreck that you could take your eyes off of?
So,
that's a secret to YouTube. Train wreck.
Well, so Jim, did you enjoy the show?
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Will you come back and see us?
Of course I will.
Will you keep your potty mouth in the potty mouth cabinet?
I promise to be a good boy.
Liar.
Yeah, I am. I freely admit to being a liar.
Well, I want to thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on. And plus, it's the first interview show, one of many. I have all the links down below, but is there any message to the folks out there and later on that you'd like to leave off with?
Just keep building. No matter what you're doing, you're building something, and it's your life. So just keep building.
All right. Awesome, dude. Well, thank you. Matt?
Glad to be here. Thanks for asking. It's always a good time on the Mad Maker Show. Jim's great getting to know you a bit better. You're an awesome dude.
Thank you, Matt. You are too.
So just to wrap it up, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for the super chats. There's a lot of stuff going on always. It's funny, right? And we get to share and explain what's going on through our posts, be it on Facebook or the Instagrams or on YouTube, on shows like these. Matt has a couple of shows that are going on and has done so much work in the past bringing people together. I got inspired by that, by the way, and Ryan Bitters as well. And we started our own shows. This one is a result of all those ideas, and it just keeps expanding. So a lot of good vibes, a lot of good stories that we've told and community. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I was very much a loner, kind of still am, but I have found a lot of affection to you all, because I don't know, man, it's just like you're all insane too. At least that's how I see it, but not bad. I'm not trying to say you're bad insane. I'm trying to say that you're good insane, where you think, hey, why not? Yeah, let's try, let's do, let's this and that. I like that.
We're all a little mad.
I think we are, dude. It's true. So thank you guys. Check out Makers Media Network. The link should be below. If not, makersmedianetwork.com. Just so many people that Portal Woodworks, he's going to be having a bandsaw box challenge going on. So go to portalwoodworks.com. That's going to be happening soon. I forget if it's November or December. He's going to have to let you know, and you can check it out on the website. What else? Shirts. One place you can find everybody's shirts is makersmedianetwork.com as well. We sell shirts as well on my site, rockinwoodworks.com, of the Mad Maker Show. So, we do all that stuff, and keep rocking, guys. Thank you so much. Jim, say goodbye.
Goodbye, all. Thanks to Steve Nealon for all his support.
Rock on. And thank you, Matt, for hanging with us.
My pleasure. Rock on.